Hello and welcome to the Cut Cardstock YouTube channel. I am Jill of Jill Cameron Creations, and we're making wedding decor today in the form of shadow boxes. Shadow boxes have taken over my crafty little love life here recently. So I created a simple shadow box that's just a square. These measure 5 by 5 with squares going down 1/4 of an inch down to the center square. Now because this is square, of course, I can resize it to whatever size I wanted it to be. I wanted these to be kind of small, something that could be set on a table very simply, accent on the dessert tables or a banquet table or anything like that. I'm going to show you really quick how I put these together, and then I'm going to super speed it up because I want you to see the whole process as it comes together. There's a couple of things about putting shadow boxes together that I wanted to mention. Make sure that as you take it off of your mat, I used a Silhouette Cameo. Of course, you can use your Cricut or your Brother Scan and Cut. But as you're taking these off, make sure that you are keeping them in the same orientation and also in the same order. When you purchase complex designs like from an Etsy shop or something like that, most of the time they're numbered, so it's really easy to keep up with in the orientation that you pull them off the mat. The reason for that is even though they're square, they're still going to be slightly oriented off. It's just the nature of cutting multiple things like this in squares with a circle in the middle of it. If you turn one 45 degrees, you'll be able to notice it just slightly when it's finished. I'm using some foam squares on the corners and at the very edges of the circle to make sure that it has enough oomph in the middle and it doesn't collapse. That I am using today, of course, is from Cut Cardstock, and it's basis cardstock, and it is navy 80 pound. The pearl white that has the shimmer to it is the classic linen cardstock, and the color of it is pearl white. It has that beautiful linen texture to it with that pearl shimmer. It is absolutely gorgeous. Then the gray cardstock that I'm using is the discount cardstock that is in the color Dolphin, and that is also 80 pound cover stock. Squares that I'm using are definitely double-sided. However, when you're putting something like this together and you need to make sure that the alignment needs to be perfect on it, or practically perfect, add a little glue to your foam, and that way it gives you just enough wiggle time to be able to move it around where it needs to be without catching and tearing your cardstock, and without that foam square immediately adhering to it. There's different kinds of foam squares out there that are different heights, so you can adjust the level, the thickness in between each level. You could add more foam between it. You could also put no foam at the bottom instead of like on the bottom of it where I'm putting that one in the center. You could put none right there and put a light in it so it shines up from the bottom. Just make your base a little bit bigger, and you can do that with a little strip lighting. And my friend was telling me the other day that those little strip lights can be found at the dollar stores now. I haven't seen it at my local one, but I think the one up in the next town over has them, and I've got to go up there and check that out. These particular shadow boxes are about 11 layers thick. It's 11 layers of cardstock, and it ends up being just a shade under an inch thick. I made this 5 by 5 because I could get 2 of these shadow boxes out of 8.5 by 11 cardstock. I could get 4 out of them out of a 12 by 12 sheet of cardstock. And Cut Cardstock has a lot of selection of 12 by 12 cardstocks. It's really not easy to find those in packs anymore, and the color selections that they have. As I pick the shadow box up, you can see the foam tape on the sides of it. And you can see foam tape on all 4 sides of it. So once I finish putting everything together, we're going to make edging for it. You can, like if it's a big 12 by 12 shadow box, you can of course get a frame for it that has glass in it and finish it off that way very simply. However, if you're doing something small like this, you can still finish this off in a frame and it looks absolutely gorgeous. So I'm going to show you real quick how we're going to finish these off with some cardstock around them. I put together the white linen pearl off camera. Now we're going to go ahead and cut our paper for the frames. These, like I've said, are about 1 inch thick. So we need to have 1/4 of an inch overlap on each side. I'm going to cut 1.5 inch strip of gray cardstock, and this is going to be our frame for navy. And I'm going to cut 4 of these. The length of these strips needs to be a shade over 5. You want just a hair hanging off of each end. Strips at 1.5 inches wide, and then trim them down to 5 and just a shade over 5 so that they're hanging over just a little bit. We're going to score flaps on these at 1/4 of an inch on both sides of the length of the strip. While I finish cutting these and get ready to score these, I have a few tips about cutting detailed elements in shadow boxes, even if it's just a circle and a square on your Cricut or your Silhouette or your Scan and Cut. Make sure you have a really sharp blade, pretty much a fresh blade. Cutting all this paper, especially if it's detail or circle, will really dull that blade down really quick. You don't want a super sticky mat if you have detail things that you're cutting out. You want to make sure that your mat is, well, like if you put your hand on it, it'll stick to it, but it'll also fall off after a second or two. If you have a super sticky mat, you're going to have trouble with those detailed elements pulling off easily without damaging them. When I'm trying to score something on my scoreboard at 1/4 of an inch, it's really hard to get over there in that corner because I'm right-handed. So I'll just flip my cardstock around and make it at 1/4 of an inch mark on there and score it that way. It's a lot easier for me to do. Now when you're folding these up, you want to start in the center of it and fold from the center out. That is going to keep it from having crinkles or creases in it where it folds the paper incorrectly. I'm reinforcing my score line with a Teflon bone folder. It doesn't mark my paper. I love Teflon bone folders. They don't mark the paper with shiny spots or anything like that. Make sure that crease is really tight there. And you can use either double-sided tape or glue, either one. I prefer double-sided tape for my larger 12 by 12 shadow boxes, but for these small ones, doing liquid glue for it was absolutely perfect because it gave me enough wiggle room in there. So now we're going to put our frame on this, and I'm just going to start on one side. I'm going to put glue on that bottom lip and on the top lip, and then we're just going to slide it in as if it were sitting in a track. And that's going to cover the edges of it, and we're going to do this on all 4 sides of our shadow box. This is a simple frame. I'm not doing any beveling at the corners or anything like that. I need the top and the bottom of the frame to overlap the sides. So I do 2 sides first, and then I'll do the top and the bottom. The reason for that is this is not quite 1 inch wide. So the top has a little bit of a gap in between the frame and the front of the shadow box, and that's fine because the corners of the frame will hold it together and it makes it look like it's still attached. And as long as it's on the back and the 4 corners of the frame are attached, it holds together fine and it looks beautiful. And the 1.5 inch was a whole lot easier than measuring some odd number for an exact measurement on that centerpiece and adding 1/4 of an inch on either side. So this is perfect for it. When I'm done, I add a heavy acrylic block on top of this and make sure that all 4 corners are attached really well and it's all put together. And you don't have to see when you put the acrylic block on top of it because it's got all that foam tape in there. I so wish video picked up the depth and how deep this thing is and how beautiful it is. It's just, it's so pretty. Okay, after that dried, I went ahead and finished this off. And I put just, I just did a die cut sentiment very simply because that's what I had on hand. You could do a custom sentiment in that could be Mr. and Mrs. It could be bride's table, gift table, dessert table, coconut oil table, who knows. It could be a whole lot of different things. You could put whatever you wanted to, including their last name in a custom cut sentiment from your Cricut, Silhouette, or Brother Scan and Cut. Also went ahead and did some floral elements to add to this, and for the navy box it is in the linen white, and then on the linen white box, it's all the opposite colors. And I'm just going to glue these on simply. And I hope you give shadow boxes a try. They are so much fun. Don't forget to head over to the Cut Cardstock blog and check out our other projects from our other design team members. And also head to the shop and pick up some cardstock. Right now, Pop Tone cardstocks are on sale, and those are absolutely awesome colors. There are some really sweet colors in there, especially for summer and doing summer florals. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Go head over there and pick some up. And I don't know if you know this or not, but Cut Cardstock also does custom printing, and they'll cut your cardstock too. So if you wanted to do like white cardstock panels and get them cut in 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, you can do that. It is a charge, but not much. But thank you for joining me today. Stop by next time.